Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good day and welcome to our Ramadan edition of Life Matters. Today we explore how Hifdh students can enhance their concentration and focus, as well as the benefits of being a Hafidh al-Quran, Quran memorizer. As we embark on the sacred path, we invite you to join us in exploring this intersection of the joys of reciting the Holy Quran, the focus that gets involved in it, and the cognitive function. Our guest today is no stranger to the platform, Waheeda Essop, an expert occupational therapist. She will share some practical strategies to enhance that concentration, retention, the benefits of Quran, and mental well-being. Let's transform your child's Hifdh journey together and cultivate a deeper connection with the Holy Quran in today's show of mindful memorization. This journey of unlocking the power of Quranic memorization will inshallah help everyone involved in your household and surroundings, and ultimately helping our Hufadh. Let's now welcome Waheeda Essop, an accomplished occupational therapist with over 20 years of experience. Waheeda's passion about unlocking children's potential and empowering parents through education her vast expertise spans from vocational assessments, childhood development, and leadership, as well as her experience in the medico-legal assessments and testimony as an expert witness is something that she's also involved in. She will also guide us through a previous Ramadan show that we did, and I hope you can remember that one. It's the benefits of Salah and the positions, and it really did enhance some research that she had delved into, and hopefully she'll be able to finish that research on her side, alhamdulillah, on that subject, inshallah. It's something that she's quite passionate about. Therefore, Waheeda is absolutely valuable to insight and conversations like this today. So please do join us, and remember to tell your family, friends and colleagues, whether they close by or across the lands and over the seas, they can watch the show as we talk about mindful recitation and how to help those hufad. You can do so on Hilaal.tv and you can live stream. Assalamu alaikum to you, Waheeda, and welcome once again to our studios. It was a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you back, and Ramadan Mubarak to you as well.
Wa alaikum salam, Ramadan Mubarak to you too.
MashaAllah. It's been quite a talk that we had last with clumsiness, DCD.
Yes.
If I said that correctly, is the new acronym.
Correct.
But alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful month, and I hope your family is well, inshallah, embracing and gaining all the benefits when it comes to this beautiful month of Ramadan. And Quran is very much a focus, and
Definitely.
so are Hufadh. They are sort of the forefront, literally, in the night prayers for Taraweeh.
Yes.
And it is something that they do throughout the year, through years to come. And this is something that's quite significant in our community.
Yes.
So what I want to touch on today, and hopefully you can help us through, is of course, the cognitive benefits and lots of other benefits when it comes to well-being.
Yes.
And I think just overall personality for that child, it also assists with. But the unique terms in the cognitive demands when it comes to Quranic memorization, what are those?
So when it comes to learning the Quran, you obviously, we all know that you need a different level of focus. So it's not just about focusing and attending and looking and reading. It's about processing, maintaining your attention. So when we look at attention and concentration, we speak about focus. That's basically just your ability to look at something, but attention is basically having to look at that something, and then concentration is also about attending for a period of time without getting distracted, but then attending to it in a quality fashion. So not just a normal kind of attention and concentration that you would do with normal tasks. So your concentration and your focus is quite different when it comes to Quran memorization. The other thing that children have or need is a lot of is planning, planning and organization, which
Time
is a
management.
challenge,
Yeah.
yes, for especially for your younger child, because remember, if your child is very young, they haven't really developed a lot of their abstract ability. So some of your higher cognitive functions usually come into play later in life. So for them to now plan ahead and plan their time. So when a child is younger, it's up to a parent to actually assist them with planning and making sure that they get everything else in. But then, they have enough time for that Quran memorization and their Hifdh classes. But it demands a lot of, obviously, structure. But one of the things that, or two of the areas that it requires to learn is what we call auditory and visual memory skills. And that is as is. Visual is the ability to remember what you see, okay, and it's remembering not just what you see, but it's remembering the sequence of what you see. And then auditory memory, in other words, so you are seeing that word, but then you are also saying out aloud the word. You're saying out that word out aloud. And then remembering that, because remember, if I read it in my head, if I read the word structure and development, I'm reading that. But when I'm saying that word out aloud, when it comes to the Arabic language, it's not the same. So it's about tone, it's about your punctuation. So it's a different set of memory skills. So those are your main areas or main aspects that you need in order to actually learn.
And we know with reciting the Quran, you don't just read it off. Like you're saying, there's the certain parts of the mouth that they need to use,
Yes.
the throat that they need to use because of tajweed.
Yes.
And I'm sure we're going to get to the benefits of using all of that. But let's look at some of the common challenges Hifdh students do face, and how can an occupational therapist assist with that?
So I think obviously the one of the main difficulties is memory. It's memory, recall, long-term memory, because what happens is that you learn, and you learn with the process of what they call textural memory. So you're learning a text. And then that basically goes to another aspect of when you have to recall that, it goes into your sort of your short-term memory. And with the repetition, it then goes into long-term memory. So it's a different process. And what we also we need to exclude or ensure before a child actually starts with that is that they have no underlying delays in those kind of memory skills. In other words, that their development when it comes to memory and what we call visual processing. Okay, so that's basically what you see, how you interpret what you see. So, for example, we know that, for example, a dal is different from a val because of the dot. That's what we call visual discrimination. So that's usually in your very early phases. So those kiddies are usually the ones learning to read the Quran, to identify the letters. So they wouldn't obviously start with a child that young. However, when they do start with younger children, they use their auditory memory skills. But then that also still requires auditory processing skills. So in other words, knowing the difference between ayn and a hamza, for example, or so that's different kind of auditory discrimination skills. So just making sure that a child doesn't have those issues. So those things are basically on par with the age, and usually that kind of thing is picked up when they do other type of schooling, their normal preschool, or when they do go to school and they have difficulties in other areas. That's usually a telltale sign.
As an occupational therapist, what is your advice for people starting, for parents that wants to start their children Hifdh school very young, from a very young age? Because I believe children are able to retain information very well at a certain age, and to hone onto that skill is actually quite incumbent when memorizing the Quran.
So a child that's very young is amazing. We spoke about brain development and how most of that actually happens in the first 3 years of life. So you have your brain cells, and you're just born with brain cells. And as you grow, every skill you develop, those brain cells make connections, and that's how you develop your neural pathways. And most of those pathways actually develop then in your first 3 years. That's why they actually tell parents, if the mom and dad are from have different home languages or first languages, you can actually speak. Mom can speak her language and dad can speak his language, and the child will learn both languages adequately, purely because there's so much of growth in those first 3 years. So similarly, a child listening, so remember, their visual skills for a very young child isn't fully developed. So we know that a child develops to read and to actually just write. I'm not talking about reading at preschool years. So around 6 years, they adequately can write their name and maybe do a sentence. And that's usually their level of what they call visual perception. So, but however, the auditory processing is quite amazing. And they can learn something without actually seeing it from a young age. So it is it's challenging, very challenging, because the method of learning or the method of teaching would be different, because it would be purely on auditory memory and repetition of that, and it would.
And I want to use an example. Sorry to break you there, Waheeda. I just want to use a personal story. One of my children, I can't remember which one it was. We used to make salah with us from a very young age. And in fact, he then started to recite Surah Fatiha from before he was even 5 years old. I think he was like 3 or 4 years. Couldn't even speak properly. And he used to do the movement just because he used to listen to his dad. And one of my daughters also, came to do that. Now, today, you ask them to recite Surah Fatiha, they don't. But now they're in the Surah. But I remember that because they were every salah, whether it's 3-4 times a day, whether it's just once a day, they were there hearing Surah Al-Fatiha. So that's what you're talking about, the auditory and the memory.
Exactly, yes. So they are children are very receptive to that kind of thing. So they even encourage pregnant mothers to read, because remember, your sense of hearing develops quite early, before even your visual sense and some of your other senses. So to read a Quran while you are pregnant also is already a start to that kind of journey where you creating an environment where a child is listening and growing up hearing the Quran. So to actually and not necessarily where, okay, I'm making my child now a Hafiz, but saying that I want my child to learn more Quran. So just to read to them and make sure that they hear the Quran. So even if you're not reading loud, and I know, from many of us from sort of old schools of madrasa, we learned to read, but we would read softly, because we also a bit like shy to read out loud, and I think reading out loud is so important. You want children to hear you, and it makes a difference to yourself when you actually read out and you hear yourself read the Quran.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to look at the role of an occupational, possibly after the short break, when it comes to Hafid students and how they can actually help the Hufad in that way. So shukran so much for sharing that. Waheeda Essop is sharing her wealth of knowledge and expertise when it comes to Hifdh students and their cognitive ability and the benefits involved in that. Let's continue this discussion after the short break. Please do interact with us. We sometimes would like to hear your child's or even your Hifdh story as an adult, because that also does happen. Please interact with us on our WhatsApp line and social pages. We'll continue with our Ramadan Life Matters just after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to our Ramadan edition of Life Matters, and I hope inshallah your Ramadan is going well and you're able to gain the benefits of these days of this beautiful month, inshallah. Did you know that Quranic memorization develops language skills, vocabulary and Arabic proficiency? As Waheeda mentioned, recite aloud. Now, memorization as well enhances critical thinking, analysis and problem solving. With Quranic knowledge, it also improves communication skills, public speaking, as well as leaderships. Just some of the benefits derived from reciting the Quran and also learning it by memory. Let's dive into some practical techniques to boost concentration and focus for Hifdh students. Our guest Waheeda Essop is a seasoned occupational therapist and our local OT as well, and entrepreneur. So check out her ECI store online, and is dedicated to enhancing children's lives with help and guidance, including our parents and Hufad, on how to achieve just that. So now let's look at mindful practices when reciting the Quran, because very often you're sitting there and you see those Hufad sitting and they're even like going at a rhythm, reciting that verse over and over and over. How does reciting that verse and being mindful help one with possibly enhancing their focus for these students?
So when you are mindful, you've got your task at hand, and you've got to achieve something, and having that kind of focus. It's not a short-term thing. It's something that is actually it's a big goal and a big aim, but you obviously have to get there. You have to have your little goals to get there. So with the result, it creates a type of endurance and resilience with children. So when especially when they do have that focus, they obviously would struggle to always maintain that, because that's the challenge of it. But having it in their lives and knowing that this is what they need to do, and all the sacrifices and the changes and that go with it, develops them. It develops their character. It gives them what we call endurance, to the point where you know what is the outcome, or you the outcome is very hard, but you're willing to push to try and get that.
Because it's almost like an athlete, for instance. You're pushing and you're pushing. That endurance, of course, develops certain skills.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. No, I tell you what, let's leave the benefits for a little bit later. And I want to look at more about
OT.
the role, the OT role when it comes to, integrative techniques, sensory developments. How can possibly sensory techniques affect or help be most effective, rather, for Hifdh students while they're studying?
Okay, so I think what I want to first focus on in terms of helping a child is knowing yourself. So it's very important to know as an individual that's becoming a Hafiz, what your learning styles are.
Okay.
So, for example, myself, I'm a very visual person. And my auditory skills suck, but also my pronunciation sucks. So I know what I battle with. I know, for example, that my tajweed isn't always best, and I know what I need to work on. So every child entering into this needs to understand themselves. They need to understand their learning style as well. So yes, the main learning style is repetition and memory. But if, for example, you are a very, very visual learner, and you are still going to be using that, you can put more emphasis on your visual input to reinforce what you've learned. So I've been talking to, so my sister-in-law is in Alima, and she's been doing Hifdh herself with all three of her girls. And she's also given me some input, and one of the things related to this visual thing, one of the things she spoke about was to just read the Quran. Read like sections that you have learned, not for memory, not to recite again, but just to
So it's
read.
like mindful reading. You look at each letter, each haraka.
So then you're going through the letters again, you're going through the haraka, you're going through the pronunciation. And you are actually then reinforcing the visual aspect. And if, for example, say you are a very auditory learner, so you have to obviously look at the passage and learn it, but you repeat it auditory, but now you want to reinforce that because you're an auditory learner, you can play it. You can play it again. Let's play those verses, and you have the most some lovely apps, which I will mention just now, that you can just play your sabak. I'm gonna play that, and I'm in the car, or I've got a bit of free time, or I'm actually busy with something else. You're busy with another task, but you play it in the background, and subconsciously that actually helps to reinforce what you've learned.
It's almost like the similar example of the little one listening visually and memorizing.
Yes.
You actually, with this, you as an older person that's now recognized, or one that has now studied it and memorized it, now this action of doing it is reinforcing.
Yes, definitely. So the other thing that I want to talk about is it's what we've probably spoken about a lot before, and it's food. It's your so
we actually don't speak much about food in this show with you, but you're welcome to.
So I think I've spoken about food and development before. I can't remember, but anyway, but I'm always harping on about it, but more from a developmental perspective, because it's so important in our children's development, in our children's brain development. Because when you are learning, you are obviously, remember we spoke about brain cells, having the brain cells, and we just want those connections to be formed. And when you, for example, are learning a passage, you're learning a new passage, it's your new sabak, you are learning, say, I'm just going to give you an example, it's the 3 ayats, and so you read the ayats, and that goes then into, I told you, textual memorization, and then it goes into your short-term memory, and then what you have like this small little faded line of a pathway that starts to develop from one new brain cell to another, right? And as you repeat the information, your that pathway gets stronger and stronger, and until it's into what we call your long-term memory. So in other words, then there is a definite path, a neural pathway that's developed. So it's all about brain development. But to do that, we need to look at what your hufa is eating, your hafiz is eating. So they need to have all your safe amounts of all the different food groups, but your fatty acids are very important. Your omega-3, your enough water intake, right, and the avoidance of processed food. Right. So now
elimination of processed foods is what we should say.
That would be lovely in an ideal world, but you
hard.
can't really completely eliminate, unfortunately, because some of it is good, and but you can reduce the intake. And the reason I want to speak about this is so what happens in the brain when you do have a lot of processed food? You have something called the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, right?
Okay.
So that's BDNF, okay? And this is a very, very important molecule that's used for learning. It's used for learning, for long-term memory,
Yeah.
and growth of new neurons.
Okay, that sounds like a new conversation
Yes,
completely,
yes.
Waheeda. So we're going to just stop right there.
Okay.
Because apparently, with the first segment, we already went over.
Yes.
This is such a good topic to talk about. I don't think we've actually delved into an OT and how they can help with the information that you have. Because alhamdulillah, you have Hufad students in your family as well. So this information can not just help them, but beyond. So thank you so much for your valuable insights. We will continue this conversation just after the short break. Please do stay with us. And also do follow Waheeda's work at the ECI Center and Store, as well as her therapist's rooms. Stay tuned to our next segment where we'll discuss the benefits and also continue the conversation of how occupational therapy and information involved in OT can actually help with Hufdh today. It is for you and everybody that you do know that is memorizing the Holy Quran. Do stay with us. We'll be back just after this. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum. This is our Ramadan edition of Life Matters. Thank you so much for staying with us and staying tuned as we talk about the Quran, and what better way to do it is than to talk about the Holy Quran. The Quran is a guide for life in every way. Memorizing it as well guides our minds and helps us with focus, and is also a gateway to possible productivity in our life. We felt like we achieved something, and productivity is the key to success. And Salah, as we know, is also the key to success, but so is getting things done. And we feel like we achieved something. And all this can be achieved by just memorizing the Quran. Now, Waheeda Essop is in studio with us, helping us, occupational therapist and founder of the ECI Center and Store, which is online, as well as the director of Essop and Dolan Sheikh Occupational Therapist Incorporated. Waheeda's extensive experience in OT is really helping us and the Hufdh students with regards to the benefits and the everyday conversations and practices we can use just to enhance that cognitive ability of reciting, retaining, and helping us beyond. Because at the end of the day, we need to, the Hufdh, they need to memorize this, remember it for the rest of their lives once they have memorized it. So still continuing the conversation with regards to the role, that the OT can play and what you have learned through Hafidh students and the benefits of being Hafidh al-Quran. Some of the strategies you've broken down, and I rudely interrupted you before we took a break, so please do continue. But added to that, if you could please maybe add some techniques that could help Hafidh students with maybe complex tasks. Like I've heard, Hifdh students say, I just can't get the surah in my head. I'm struggling with this verse. There's just this block. What happens to children with that, or even adults where that occurs, and what are the strategies to help them?
Okay, so I'm going to go to your first question, or following to what we were speaking about before. So there's just two reasons why we should avoid which I'm going to talk about, the processed foods. And the one was that there's a reduction in the BDNF, which is that long word, but basically that molecule is very, very important for learning, for long-term memory, which we need, and for the growth of new neurons. And your processed food can reduce the production of this. The other thing that the additives in some of our processed foods tend to interfere with brain chemicals like dopamine, I hope I say this right. But basically it's a production of melatonin and serotonin, which is all very important for everything from your sleep to digestion and to your metabolism. So that is very, very important in learning. So to try and avoid those kind of foods, or at least keep it to a minimum.
There's some crazy stats out there, because I did a
Yes.
show with Dr. Moody from Australia, who is a professor in nutrition and exercise and a fitness expert. He's even been on some of the covers. But mashallah, he's transformed, everything he's learned into Islamic values now.
Yes.
And he talks about processed foods and the consumption of it. And there's even a percentage of consuming it certain, like 3 or 4 times a week. He didn't say it might or maybe. He said it will cause cancer because of what is in there.
Yes, that's so true.
So scary facts.
Very scary.
So stay away from processed foods.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So in terms of assisting somebody, from a OT perspective, I think one of the main things with occupational therapy as a profession is what we call volition or motivation. To do anything, you need an inner volition and motivation to want to do that task. And it's important that a child has that kind of mindset to say that this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do, because with volition you get what they call action, right? So questions that come with that is, why am I doing this? For who I'm doing this? And what will I gain? So those are 3 things. And, we often know this and the kids know it. But it's sometimes important for them to sort of stop and pause and reflect on that. So when they are coming to that stumbling block or that difficult surah, or they just have a lot of other things also happening, because that often happens with, because my daughter's in varsity at the moment, so the challenges are quite high to do that, and with the Hifdh classes. So to actually do that, have a pause and have a reset almost, to say, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And for who? And then also, to look at, to just always exclude anything that's happening. So if, for example, or at least to teach your child how to do that, because if you are having a stumbling block, you need to know why. Okay, sometimes it's just there. Okay, which is fine, which is happen. It happens. It's just one of those things. But there may be something else happening. So there may be exams. There may be a social conflict. There may be other stresses. And, with females studying, it's just so much more harder.
Because then they have their head and they have to break for 7 days and then they have to come back to that.
And I think that's the most difficult part for the ustada or the hafidha, to basically to have that a complete break from the Quran, and sometimes it's up to 10 days, and then to have to get back into it, is very, very hard. So to teach them those strategies from I'm not reading and now I'm reading, and that how to phase that, right? And then your mood before. So you also have to consider that you irritable, you are frustrated, and you don't always have a reason, So what you want to do with your kids is you want to have them identify that. So again, it comes back to understanding themselves. So understanding who you are. Yes, now you know your learning styles, but now you need to know your temperament. You need to know what's affecting you and how I can change this. So that kind of mindfulness is those reset sessions, should I say, should be actually built into your program, where you do it on a regular basis. And I know that my sister-in-law, with teaching her kids, has included this, because she says that's just what they need sometimes. They just need that kind of reset or restart and a pause to actually carry on.
And I think we don't realize how much information like this. I mean, the madrasa teachers, they just, you're alima, you taught this, but little bits of medical science or studies that occupational therapists, speech language therapists, the physiotherapists, actually helps the process of learning, memorizing the Holy Quran. So, okay, let's take a break. We haven't even gotten to the benefits, and we've got a last segment to go. Only one. So, like, literally, when you're having fun, alhamdulillah, with the Holy Quran, time flies. So we'll talk more after the short break. Stay with us as we continue this conversation, this beautiful journey of Hifdh students and the cognitive abilities and benefits, as well as being mindful reciters. More just after the short break. Do stay with us. Welcome back in our last few minutes as we discuss mindful memorization and our Ramadan series in Life Matters, as well as the cognitive benefits of memorizing the Holy Quran. Waheeda Essop, our OT, in-house OT, is with us and founder of the ECI store and center. Please catch that online as we conclude with putting theory into practice and also reiterating some of the benefits and where speech and language also incorporates some strategies into daily routines, inshallah. So, Waheeda, let's look at now the cognitive benefits of learning Hafidh al-Quran, inshallah.
Okay, so I read very interesting research articles, and one of them spoke about, it refers to Hifdh education, you learning texts, and those texts are stored in your what they call sensory memory through your visual and your auditory senses, as we spoke about. And then it's moved to your short-term memory with attention and then transferred to long-term memory with consolidation. And as the texts are strengthened by reading continuously and regularly, synaptic connections get more stronger in the brain. And so change occurs in the cell and the brain circuits. And basically the study shows that textual memorization causes increased gray matter. And in certain brain regions, change has a direct change to brain structures.
Okay, so in layman terms, you are saying?
It makes us
clever. More clever.
More clever.
We were clever, but even more clever.
Yes, yes.
So increases that brain capacity, that absorption, that knowledge, everything makes us cleverer.
Yes.
Just by memorizing the Holy Quran.
Very interesting, yeah. So there was a similar one. Also, it was in Indonesia, and they looked at studying Hifdh in kindergarten kiddies. So that's basically your preschool age group. And they found that the kids, it concluded that the kids had a significantly increased academic achievement before compared to after having done Hifdh. So and obviously this is now not it was a proper study taken with a group of children, and we had another article that I read that spoke about, so those are also about cognitive abilities, and it showed that the memorization of the Quran enhanced cognitive abilities of the students, and the process of memorizing the Quran enabled those students to manage their time efficiently, develop better problem-solving skills, and also allowed them to develop alternate techniques and methods to achieve various tasks. So it's taking that kind of learning the Quran and what it did to their brain to a functional level where they were able to time manage better, problem solve better, and handle everyday tasks in a different manner.
And earlier, and also I read some research, it also said they becomes better speakers.
Yes.
They're able to speak
Yes.
well, and they, possibly even fall into leadership roles.
Yes.
You also
yes.
had some benefits and some information from speech and language therapists.
Yes. So I spoke to a colleague, a speech and language therapist, Nabila Kathrada, and she's given some. She's had patients that she's given therapy to, but wanted additional information on learning Hifdh from a auditory and language perspective, and she gave them a sort of almost a program. But I'm just going to mention maybe just one or two of the techniques that she spoke about in these in the program, and the first one was it's fairly straightforward, but it's something that's so important, is what they call echo. So it's repeating what is the verse or the ayat, but repeating it immediately after it was read. Okay. And another one was, for example, well, chunking, which is usually what we do, and we take chunks of the information, you break it up, and you memorize it. But what's interesting about this, or what I think is important, is to actually to be able to adapt that. So often we start off in a certain way, and we have a certain amount of sabak, and that gradually increases. And yes, most children manage with that. However, when sometimes you come to a stumbling block, that's not always the best approach, because you have a lot of the other things happening. You still want to learn. So to actually go back a step and say, okay, I'm not taking that much, or I'm reducing my chunks. Or when I learn, I'm not going to learn 3 ayats at a time. I'm going to learn just one, just to be able to downgrade and upgrade as you feel it, and as you feel the need. And that again comes back to knowing, understanding yourself, and your,
that it doesn't
and your
affect
ability.
you emotionally as well as like you're pulling yourself down. It's actually you benefiting at the end of the day. I want to use quickly visual arts and technology. How can that help Hafid students? Because you've mentioned that earlier on with regards to replaying it and playing.
One of the quick ones I want to just mention that Nabila also mentioned was paced recitation. So increasing and slowing down the pace, and doing that on a regular basis to actually reinforce what you learn. So when it comes to technology, there were 2 sort of apps that I was recommended to me, and the one is, it's called Quran Lee. So Quran spelled with 1 A and then an LY at the end, which is basically an app that allows you to read the Quran, listen to the Quran, but it also allows you to set goals. And it gives you some kind of like a visual representation of your progress when you do actually learn. And then another one that's really nice is called the Tarteel.ai. So it's TARTEEL.ai, and it's basically an AI. It's using AI to help memorization. So what it does, you can recite, and it actually has what they call a memorization mistake detector.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Memorization mistake detector.
Yes, so it will listen to you recite, and it will detect any word that you make and point out your mistakes, and it will also obviously give you sort of alerts and things like that. So obviously this is not it's not going to be your start, but you can use it to reinforce your work. It will obviously help when you have a break from a class, when you're on a holiday break, and you don't or you don't have somebody to listen to you. And also then as a reinforcement of your memorization skills.
We have to wrap up, and I'm sure you have some last words to share with parents and Hafid students, and I'm sure it's literally at your doorstep with family as well. That's doing, and all around us in this beautiful month, we rely so much on our Huffaz to lead us
Yes.
So your last words on this mindful memorization show.
My sister-in-law, again, I'm going to refer back to her. She says to me something very interesting when she wants to help and wants to guide her kiddies, because I remember kiddies don't always think concretely, and they don't always think of the future.
Yeah.
But she actually says that, remember, guys or girls, in her case, you guys are soldiers. That's what you are. You are a soldier protecting the Quran. And if you think of a soldier has set times. They have to work a shift. They have to guard. They have to be vigilant. And they can't have, they are protectors, they are guardian. They can't always just have any time off that they want.
Yeah.
They have to have that kind of structure. So be a soldier, and Allah will make you a strong protector.
Steadfast, mashallah. Bit not better words sent from the Ustad herself, carried over by her sister-in-law. Shukran so much again, Waheeda, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Please make the most of this beautiful month of Ramadan, and may Allah make us see the next one as well to benefit. Inshallah, all the best until we chat again. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
That was Waheeda Essop. As we conclude mindful memorization, we'd like to thank our guest and appreciation for Waheeda's commitment in enhancing children's lives and passion for empowering, children and their families through shows like this. We, of course, wish her continued success in all her endeavors, and remember that you can catch her ECI store as well, and connect with her as well on her various platforms. Now, Quran mastery is not just about memorization, but about cultivating mindfulness, discipline, spiritual growth, and also the growing closer to your Creator. We pray that you are able to take these strategies shared today and apply them to your lives, to your daily life, inshallah, to all Hufad and to their parents and their supporters. You're never too old to do your Hifdh. Recently, I heard of an 80-year-old completing her Hafidh al-Quran journey. So what is our excuse? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless the efforts and guide all Hufad on their path to mindful memorization. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the wisdom to understand this and the courage to practice this, and sincerely to serve Allah with all that we can. Ameen. For more information on Waheeda's work, visit her website or social media pages. Waheeda's expertise has once again been valuable today. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, please reach out to her directly. Join us next time for more inspiring Ramadan shows. Remember to subscribe to all our content for more enlightening conversations. Until then, stay informed and stay holistically healthy, mind, body and soul this Ramadan. From the rest of the Life Matters team here in Johannesburg studios, wassalamu alaikum and goodbye.